I'm excited to share part 2 of my conversation with Katie White as we delve into the reflective questions of the Mind Game podcast. In part 1, we explored the lessons of the in-between, when we make the leap from the known to the unknown, and how the magic comes from the courage to relax into the in-betweens, because often it will take you somewhere you never imagined. Is there just one singular future that you see, or is the future filled with possibilities and many storylines just waiting for you to step in and write the next chapter? What if waiting in the in-between opens up more possibilities of the future and gives you time to step into the one that's even better than what you first imagined? What if the best things that never happened are what truly shapes and expands the possibilities of your future? You just have to open your eyes and see that life may not be what you thought, but oh, is it so much better. Let's rejoin the conversation with Katie as she recaps her habits to level up, and we dig into how a life defined by our nevers and the stories we tell ourselves can help you share the gifts that we all have and find what you are really meant to do. Let's rejoin the conversation. Welcome to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. My name is Stephanie Painshaw, and I'm excited for you to join me on a journey behind the scenes where we'll dig into the stories of resilience, mindset, and unlock the simple habits that will help you change the game. Before we dive in, I want to express our gratitude for your continued support. Your energy powers our quest to provide content that encourages you to unlock new levels of personal growth and step out of your own comfort zone. If you're inspired by an idea or have a suggestion for a future topic, connect with us at mindgamelevelupyourlife.com. Your feedback is a power-up that helps us continue on this epic adventure. So if you're ready to get out of your own way and explore what you didn't know you needed to know, you've come to the right place. So buckle up, open up your mind. It's time to level up. And so looking at the time, I have a few questions that I prepped you for here. So, because you know me, here's the question.
I know. I like it too.
I wasn't sure how to do a podcast and be like, I don't know what we're going to talk about. The person I took the training from, she's like, you could just be in the moment and have the conversation. And part of me is like, yes, I can do that. And then part of me is like, what if we have nothing to say?
Yes,
I don't know where-
yes. I think you had 3 questions, and I think that's a good number. It's lovely. It leaves space for wherever it needs to go.
And I have one other one that's really interesting that I just heard on a walk at lunch today. So let's go to, you already really talked about a habit or strategy used to level up. Do you have a different one?
No, I mean, to recap, I say yes to things that scare me.
Yes, that's a good.
Then I visualize and imagine, but I don't imagine I imagine doing the thing, but mostly I imagine the outcome that I'm hoping for the people that I'm working with. And then I ask for the attributes that will help me achieve that. So those are my big 3.
And that's a perfect recap to level up. That'll make a perfect social media clip for us. And then this next question comes from Dwayne Johnson, because I was listening to a motivational talk and he said he went to play for the Calgary Stampeders because football was his entire life. That was what he was going to do. He didn't get drafted in the NFL. He did in the CFL. He did comment that Canadian money's not the same as American money in the value of the dollar. But he said he was cut. Calgary cut him. And he said, in the end, he said, after I got over myself, he said, I took a moment and then I realized I had to make a decision because what I thought I was going to do didn't work out. And so the rock question is, what's the best thing that never happened?
So this was a good, I've never thought about this question. This was a really good one, Steph. I was stuck in an eddy on this one for a while. So I started thinking like, I almost feel like my life is defined by the things that never happened. And I don't know whether that's because I've storied myself as a bit of an underdog or what it is, but here's what I said. I think it started when I was in grade 7. I was never on the SRC, and I tried 6 years in a row and I never won a single election. And I kept trying and it wasn't meant to be. So what I ended up doing, because this is why this is my story, is I ended up becoming the newspaper editor. and the newspaper editor could attend all SRC meetings. And
You
so
found another way.
I would attend the meetings and lobby and influence, but always felt, but never felt that that was a cool thing. Always felt a little, like that was a loser move. But anyway, that's what I did. And then I say here, what else? I went to Queen's,
Right.
which was the best university in Canada, quote unquote, whatever that means. And I never graduated from there. I moved back to Saskatchewan because, it turns out that the best school is very contextual, and that school didn't work for me. So I headed back. So then there's that never.
Guess I always thought you did from Queens. We never had this conversation
I
before.
never
See, it was
did.
a
I
good
was there for
question.
2 years, and then I transferred back home and finished my bachelor and my master's degree at the U of S. I never received the job of superintendent, as you're aware,
Mhm.
despite trying. Um, I never got a job in the ministry, and I never got a job at a university, both of which I entertained. Didn't formally apply for any of them, but it definitely entertained and thought that might be my pathway. I never had a third kid, which I thought I was going to have. And then here's what I wrote down, because I have to read it. I'm proud of myself for thinking of. I
Well,
say all of the.
I was gonna say, so that's why I send them in advance because it's a
I
hard
know
question when you
you
don't
can.
get time to think about it.
I know. I was like, wow. And so, and I apparently I'm on this river theme. I say all of these nevers have been the river that has carried me to places I didn't imagine. Sometimes I can convince myself that I am unsuccessful because I never did all of those things. That's a big long list, but I know that isn't true. I just never seem to follow the traditional leadership path. I just never do things the traditional or the way that I think that they are going to happen. And so I think that's made me a pretty complex person.
I was gonna say it's made you you because you are brave enough and courageous enough to find your own way and to make the path that brings you joy and lights you up and I've seen you make those different decisions and when they light you up and when you get in front of people and you light literally you light up my brain. So I would assume that happens to many people out there as well as you help people connect the dots and you help us think about the story of learning and to reflect on what we're doing and I had a documentation moment the other night where I was like, we all document on social media all the
All
time.
the
We document time
time.
in our lives all the time. So doing it at
Mhm.
school is nothing new. Sorry, that was an educational aside because
No, but it's
uh,
true. It's very true. And I feel like I feel like the whole thing, I mean, maybe I'm brave. Yeah, I'm probably brave to give
you are
myself
brave.
credit. But I also have felt that there is, I mean, I'm just not a I don't want to sound like new agey, and I don't know why I don't want to sound new agey, but here's where I sit on this. I am convinced that I have a gift, and that the universe, again, whatever that means, will not let me stray from that gift. And I honestly feel sometimes like I'm fighting against it. Like sometimes I don't want the gift. I don't want to have to travel more, and I don't want to have to get in front of audiences when I'm scared and do things that are hard. Sometimes I'd love to just be sitting at home watching TV, and just not always doing all of this. But I do feel that there is a force at work, whether it's inside me or whatever,
Mhm.
that will not let me stray from this path, that there is something that I'm supposed to be doing and I'm doing it. And so I
Yeah.
just have to figure out how to manage that. And, I feel like I'm excited about your podcast and hearing about other people, because what I'm curious about is how many people would echo what I say. They feel like sometimes they're fighting against that gift because it's hard when you have a gift, which we all have, by the way, every single one of us. But when you do our gifts trouble us this much? And why do they trouble us this much? Why isn't it
Mhm.
easier? And do other people experience that? I'm very curious to know, because for me, it has been, it's a difficult coat to wear. I don't
Mm.
always like having it on, but this is what life dealt me, and I certainly get a measure of pleasure from it as well. I mean, obviously, and a lot of identity is tied up in it, but it's just a really interesting thing to me.
And
Very
I'm
interesting.
smiling because that was the reason for the podcast. There's a call to do something. Sometimes
Mhm,
I can't figure out what my purpose is. I think I'm getting
mhm,
closer. Tiffany said, "Instead of following your passion, what if you followed your curiosity?" And I thought, "That's interesting," because I felt stuck.
mhm,
And so what was the
mhm.
next step, and where do we go, and what is it that I'm put on this earth to be able to do, and who else wonders these things? And so a lot of the pep talks that I listen to are related around that, and often they
Mhm,
say, "It's not out there, it's in here."
mhm.
It's coming from within, and you were meant everybody here has a gift, everybody was meant to do something, and when you are truly aligned with your purpose and you are authentic to that, you will light up, and it will light up the people around you, and you were put on this earth to do something amazing, and we all
Yeah,
do. It's whether
yeah,
or not we slow down enough to listen to those messages
yeah.
or the signs or I feel like you'd love the book, The Alchemist. But
Yes,
yeah, that's one of
yes.
my favorites.
I do love
Find
that.
your personal legacy, right? If I don't know
Yeah,
what it is, it turns out it was there all along, but we just didn't know. But
it's
that
true.
I'm we will have to do more episodes to dig into that because that's what I
Yeah.
wonder as well, and that's what I'm in search of, is what do people do to find their purpose, and
And
how do you know
how
when
do
you've
they avoid it? Like,
Yeah,
why is it so hard? I
yeah.
guess why, that's why I love this question. What's the best thing that never happened? Because I do think our nevers direct us differently. I think you have to reach deep when you get a never. You have to say, okay, so this is and I think people probably respond to nevers differently. But for me, it's been, well, what else could I do that
Mhm.
serves this drive or purpose that I have then? And that's how you end up in places that you didn't think you would.
Which is
Yeah.
where you were meant to be all along.
In the beginning. That's
Yes.
exactly right.
Yes. It's letting go enough and doing the work to end up where you were
Yeah,
meant to be that you just didn't know, and that's why I said in
that's
my
right.
podcast intro, all of the people you didn't know you needed to meet, that's who we're gonna talk to. So it's
Cool.
it's
Very
there's a
cool.
lot of signs doing the podcast, and I thought maybe the mind game was a little edgy, and the level up your life, but it turns out it's a very good topic of
Yeah.
conversation. Mind game is the self-talk that we do to ourselves all the time, and you mentioned that a few times. You talk to yourself, and if we can flip
Mhm.
that into positives, into, "I haven't done that yet," instead of, "I'm really nervous, I'm really excited," all of the ways that
Mhm.
how we talk to ourselves, because we talk to ourselves more than absolutely anybody else. And I actually listened to a video today that was about FOPO, the fear of other people's opinions. And
Oh.
when we let go of the fear of other people's opinions and just be who we are and do what we were meant to
Mhm.
do, life changes exponentially. It's hard to let go.
Very
And
hard,
as we talked
especially
about
in an approval-oriented society, right?
Yeah.
External approval
Yes.
is what we're absolutely groomed for, so it's really,
Yes.
really tough to let that go, but I agree. I agree, I do think it is the solution. I think it's the right thing is to trust in yourself more and not let that story that you had created for what success means, not let that dictate the decisions you make and how you feel about yourself.
That was my
Yeah.
previous versions of a blog. What's your story? Because I believe the
Yeah.
story we tell ourselves impacts others. And the other thing in the video I watched this morning was other people don't actually pay that much attention to us. Like,
Nope.
that I think there was a research study done, and they had somebody wear an embarrassing T-shirt into a room with their peers, and they thought everybody noticed. I think it was a had a big face of Barry Manilow on it because it was from a while ago.
So cool.
Probably no one would know who that is now, but
It's
anyway, the
totally
people would
hip now.
Yes, it's back. It wouldn't be strange, but they were so embarrassed that they had to wear this T-shirt with a giant face on it, and it turns out only 25% of the people actually even noticed, and they only did for a couple seconds. Most of the people had no idea,
No,
like, that it's a spotlight effect. We like to spotlight ourselves. We're
very
often thinking
much.
about ourselves, and then we might look over here for a minute, and then we're back to us. So people really don't pay as much attention to us as we think. So you said the fear of other people's opinions, it's really none of our business.
Yeah.
We just need to
Yeah.
go out and live our lives.
So
And so,
much.
the next question was, what would you say to your younger self with the experience that you have now? And I'm thinking, I asked this question because, well, I think what would we all say to ourselves? I think that can be quite profound. But raising a teenage daughter, I think,
Mhm.
what are some of those things that are important to gain perspective on as we look back?
Well, I think I would say your path will be different. So you're not whatever image you have of how this is going to play out, that's not what's going to happen. So be careful for that. Your worth will come from places where you least expect it, which I think is really, really, really important to tell people. And your gifts are powerful and they will carry you to places where you feel unsure and you feel uncomfortable. Um, but that's because you're going somewhere that you need to go and you're stretching in ways you need to stretch. Your gifts, in the case of me, this is my personal, your gifts bring other people clarity and comfort. That's your job. That's what you're meant to do. Uh, and so you're going to need to work pretty hard to do that. It's going to require a lot of you, but you have everything you need to be able to do that. And the last thing I would say is your family will be where you can be your truest self, but it's okay to let other people see your true self sometimes too.
Yes.
That's what
I
I
always feel better after I talk to you, Katie, and I hope all of the listeners feel better too
think.
because you're so thoughtful and you're very good with words. Katie's the author of 4 books, and I'm sure more books on the way, maybe even a fiction book at some
I'm
point.
working on it.
Well,
I'm trying.
but I think you described the level up perfectly, that to level up, you have to get out of your comfort zone, you have to get out of your own way so that
Yep,
you can take that next step, and sometimes the only person really in the way is ourselves and
exactly.
the game that we play up here, and that's the point of the podcast. When I was walking at lunch, because I always listen to motivational talks when I go for a walk, because doesn't everybody do that?
Same.
No
I
music for
do.
me.
I do. I
No
do. So
music for
just make it
me.
feel
Yeah.
better. I do.
Sometimes the one person I walk at the palace sometimes when it's really cold or icy, because it was pretty icy out the last little bit, and the one day, I think I first found this app, and they said, "Why are you walking so fast? Like, what music do you have on?" I'm like, "Motivational pep talk from poet Kobe Bryant, like, I'm good to go." So, what they said today, and I thought this was a really interesting question. So, if you think about your life now, in 10 to 20 years, if your future self was to come back and talk to
Hmm.
you right now, what would be one thing they would tell you to help you keep going or to level up?
That's actually so interesting that you ask that because I will just tell you, because Rodney and I were getting ready to retire, we read a book on transitions, and that was an activity that we had to do. Is we
Nice.
had to say, okay, so imagine, I mean, it was a little bit somber because imagine you've got like 20 good years of physical
Right. I tried to
physicality.
phrase it in a more positive way.
What do you want to do with that 20 years? But I actually, while that is very grounding, it's also very motivating because the question really is, what do you want to do with this life that you have?
Mhm.
And there's an urgency to it that I don't know if this is inspiring to people or motivating, but to me, it's motivating to tell myself, you do not have all the time in the world, Katie White. You do not. You have limited time. So figure some things out, let go of stuff that isn't serving you, and move forward in that way. Because I think part of what my 30s and 40s were just a blindness to the fact that this time is limited. And I do feel now that I'm in my 50s, I feel this urgency
Mhm.
of paring away the stuff that isn't serving me anymore. It's gotten lots of airtime. It's gotten 50 years of airtime. It's
Yeah.
time to let go of some of that. It's just not serving me. And I so that's what I'd say is what do you need to let go of so that you can move forward on the things that matter most to you?
And that is a perfect way to wrap up the podcast because I have time for maybe one more question,
Oh,
but I
get out.
think that yeah, this one was just your favorite quote. I had asked
Uh,
if you had a favorite quotation.
I could
Yeah.
give you a quick one because I had, of course, a quote that I'm sure everyone will give at some point, the Marianne Williamson, "Who are you not to love your light," and all that. But
Oh, okay.
the other one that I chose are 2 quotes from my dad, which I'm sure I've
Nice.
shared with you before, Stephanie. My dad said very quickly, he said 2 things. He said, "If you think something nice about someone, say it out loud to them." And he said, "Try to leave a conversation with people feeling better than they felt when they started the conversation." So I love those 2 quotes. quotes because they do speak to this purpose that I feel like I'm drawn to. So there we
And
go.
I think those are perfect ways to level up your life and possible episode challenges because at the end of every episode, I post a little challenge to go with the episode.
Ah,
So all
cool.
viewers will have to stay tuned to the outro part to see what the episode challenge is. But I think that might be it. So thank you so much, Katie, for
My
joining me on
pleasure.
the podcast, for being my third guest, my first guest from Saskatchewan, from inside Canada.
Yay.
We are actually pretty close. We're only 30 minutes apart. I always enjoy a conversation with you. And I think this one allowed us to level up and go into some deeper places. And I can't wait to have you back to have some other conversations because I'm going to have to go back to the replay and be like, this is the next conversation. How do we get
Yeah.
there? And so I wanted to say thank you so much for making time because I know you have a lot on the go right now. But this podcasting and talking with people just lights up my heart and makes me excited to keep sharing with people and to keep doing the hard work of podcasting and learning how to do this and being brave to post it. So I thank you for the inspiration. Anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
Well, I would just say, Steph, that I have long thought that this was your gift.
Well,
So
thank you.
it's
I wish you would have
about
told me sooner.
it's about hey, you were in an in-between space. You need to
Yes.
figure this out. No, that it is that this is good work and your work, these conversations will serve both the people you're talking to and the people who are listening. So good for you for being brave.
Thank you. See, there's the sign. There's more
There you go.
signs all around
Mhm.
us. Somebody at one point after a live broadcast that I did, because I often did live shows or for home based business, there were some live events that we did, and I really enjoy that. And the one person said to me, "You should be a news broadcaster." And I said, "I live in Tisdale. There's no news station close to me." And she said, "You should think about it, broadcasting,
Mhm.
talk to
Mhm.
people." So that was a start. And then
Yeah.
podcasting kept coming up and I enjoyed talking with people. And I think I was always waiting for somebody else to do it with me. But I wasn't quite
Yeah.
brave enough to do it myself. Like if somebody else wants to do it with me, then it's easier. I could run the behind the scenes. But to step out and do it myself, I had to set my own level up. That was 47.
Yeah.
I was podcasting by 47. So after this, I'm going to go back to editing to get my second episode out. And I can't wait for everybody to hear this episode because I always enjoy talking with you, Katie. So thank you for lighting up my brain and helping me find clarity and know that I'm on the right path. I do wish you had told me sooner that was a good path to be on. That would have made it a lot easier. But that's not how it
No,
works in the universe.
that's
That's not
right.
how it works. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope everyone else listening to this episode could relate to us. If you have questions for us or wonders, or you could relate to the wonders that we have, make sure to leave us a comment down below. Thanks so much, everybody. And isn't that so true? It would be so much easier and faster if someone else could just point out our purpose and remind us to get back on track. But as Katie and I laughed at the end of the episode, it's sometimes easier to see in others their purpose and what lights their soul on fire. But for the person navigating the in-between, heading in perhaps a different direction than they thought, the clarity of purpose in their eyes is often lost in the struggle of paddling to where you thought you should be, instead of lifting your eyes to the horizon and trusting what's just around the bend. In part 1, Katie reminded us how life's river flows through the sometimes uncomfortable space of what was and will be, and how reflecting on the nevers may at first leave us feeling unfulfilled because it's not the life that we thought. Yet the nevers, in fact, purposefully carried us to the unimagined places, creating the stories of our life. The older we are privileged to become brings the powerful perspective that our time on this earth is limited, and while somber, the urgency of the time that we have left can inspire us to let go of what no longer serves us and encourage us to step into the gifts that each of us have inside. Even when our gifts challenge, redirect, and remind us that life isn't always what we thought, remember that your gifts not only serve you, but those on the journey with us. Katie challenged us to embrace our unique strengths, to keep paddling around the next bend in the river, through the spaces between, because that is life. And often the magic lies in the mess that you seek to avoid. Here's your Mind Game Episode 6 Challenge. Share this episode and this week as you think something nice about someone. Tell them. In person, through a voice message, a text message, or even give them a phone call. Hashtag it, level up your life. Thank you for choosing to listen to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. We hope that you've enjoyed the insights, inspiration, and habits shared in this episode. Your support is a game changer, and we are incredibly grateful to be on this journey with such an amazing community of listeners. If you have any wonders, questions, or suggestions about this or future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media and share your feedback. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us bring valuable content to you, our listeners. Don't want to miss the next episode? Join our Facebook group and email list and get ahead of the game. Until next time, remember to mind the game so that you can get out of your own way and level up your life.